Could a subscription service that lets you play endless games be too good to be true? Is Game Pass a golden ticket or a ticking time bomb for Xbox? Back in 2017, Microsoft decided to change things up and introduced Game Pass, a subscription service that allows gamers to download and play a wide selection of video games from a rotating library that are available on both Xbox and PC. Moreover, as a reward for their loyalty and support, subscribers are able to enjoy brand new games from the moment they're released. In essence, Game Pass was created to incentivize gamers to try out titles they usually wouldn't have and to lower the cost of gaming, especially for particularly devout fans. In this way, Microsoft wins because they have a constant source of reliable revenue, and gamers win because they can play a bunch of different games and ultimately save money in the process. Simple as that. So this is all good, right? Well, maybe in a perfect world, but naturally the story behind Game Pass is a little more complex than that. The thing is, there are some questions surrounding the sustainability of Game Pass since there seems to be a lot of uncertainty regarding the service's profitability and whether it actually helps Microsoft or not. And even if the service is profitable, is it in fact sustainable? With this in mind, let's zoom in and find out if Game Pass is killing the Xbox or helping keep it alive. Here we go. According to an article by Liam Doolan on Pure Xbox, Jim Ryan, the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, says that Xbox Game Pass is unanimously disliked by publishers because it destroys value. Now I know what you're thinking. It's Jim Ryan. So of course you have to take what he says with a serious pinch of salt here. But while he might not be someone who actually has any real authority, is there any truth to his words? Well, for starters, he doesn't exactly elaborate on who these publishers are, and seeing that Microsoft is one of Sony's biggest competitors, Ryan will probably take any chance he can to make them look bad, so I'm disinclined to believe him for the most part. But again, is there some truth to his claim? Since a Game Pass subscription costs between $10 and $15 a month, and some new games retail for well over $70, gamers stand to win big by subscribing to Game Pass. However, this would ostensibly hurt the bottom line of developers since they only stand to make a fraction of what they potentially could selling games at their full retail price. So on this basis, some publishers may indeed take issue with Game Pass. That's an interesting and compelling hypothesis for sure, but there's also evidence to suggest that this isn't actually the case. In a November 2020 article by Rich Stanton of PC Gamer, Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, says that small and mid-sized developers sometimes approach Microsoft and inform them that they'll agree to have their game on Game Pass if they paid a certain sum up front. And in some cases, Microsoft goes as far as to fund the entire production of a game. So in this regard, developers stand to earn a decent sum, regardless of whether the game succeeds or not. That said, there's no way Microsoft can fund every game or humor every developer, so while there are some winners, there must be a decent number who lose out. But is this necessarily a bad thing? That's a topic for a whole other video. I have to be honest with you guys and say I find Jim Ryan's comments regarding the attitude of publishers towards Game Pass hard to believe. And while I'm sure there are some that may not like it for whatever reason, I hardly think it's all or even the majority of them. Despite its detractors, it would appear that, as a service, Xbox Game Pass is growing in popularity. According to data appearing on Statista, the number of Game Pass subscribers has grown from 10 million in April 2020 to 25 million as of the beginning of 2022. I guess the pandemic played a pretty significant role in the increase in subscribers, so based on an average of about 8 million new subscribers a year, we could safely assume that the number of Game Pass subscribers is now well in excess of 35 million. This estimation is further supported by the fact that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, says that they saw an all-time high in new subscriptions in the first quarter of 2023. Sadly, he didn't go as far as to share the exact subscriber count, but hopefully we find out more before the end of 2023. Of course, something can be popular, but does it necessarily mean it's profitable? Well, no, but Phil Spencer has stated on at least 2 occasions that Xbox Game Pass is indeed profitable. I'll admit that this is somewhat surprising to me, but if you consider that there's probably at least 30 million subscribers, each of whom is spending at least $10 a month, then that's a turnover of $300 million every 30 or so days, or $3.6 billion a year. Obviously, this doesn't take various costs and overheads into account, but in principle this does sound lucrative for the most part. According to figures appearing in an article by Derek Strickland of Tweaktown, Microsoft's gaming division generated a revenue of $15.56 billion in 2022. Much of this was driven by content and services, and closer inspection of the data suggests that Game Pass could have yielded between $1.2 and $1.8 billion for the 2022 calendar year, somewhere between 10 and 15% of Xbox's digital revenue. So it would appear that Game Pass is indeed popular and profitable, but is it actually sustainable? Again, in Spencer's estimation, it certainly is. If anything, it's undeniably affecting the way that games are enjoyed as well as how they're developed. There are some concerns that Game Pass could cause a general decline in the overall quality of games, and if you take releases like Redfall for example, I'd say these concerns are more than justified. Sure, Microsoft can offer a subscription service as well as plenty of titles for gamers to enjoy, but can they guarantee that a certain standard will always be upheld? As it currently stands, things still look pretty decent to me, although I'm sure there are those of you who disagree. And while Starfield may not be quite as groundbreaking as many fans initially anticipated, it looks like it's enjoying plenty of traction on PC and with the Xbox community at large. In addition, Todd Howard himself stated that Starfield is a better game because it's exclusive to Xbox and not available on PlayStation, meaning there was more focus on the end product during the game's development. Of course, we can assume that Howard may be somewhat biased since Microsoft did acquire Bethesda, allegedly to stop it from becoming a PS5 exclusive. Anyway, right now, everything looks solid enough, but whether Microsoft can keep things up for the foreseeable future is hard to say for certain. Prices for the Game Pass increased on July 6th, with the all-inclusive package going from $14.99 to $16.99 a month. Similarly, the Xbox Game Pass went from $9.99 to $10.99 a month. Mercifully, the PC Game Pass remains unchanged at $9.99 a month. This obviously doesn't seem like much of an increase, but that's between $12 and $24 extra you'll need to fork out a year depending on your package, so this may end up being a deal breaker for some subscribers. The price hike may not be staggering, but can prices remain comparatively low indefinitely? Of that, I'm not so sure. In truth, macroeconomic factors such as the ongoing and ever worsening cost of living crisis may be a bigger threat, with increasing pressure being placed on consumers from virtually every direction. Obviously, this won't just affect Microsoft on its own, but it's still something to be mindful of and a factor that may undermine Game Pass's popularity as this general economic decline plays out. How do you feel about the recent price increase? Is it still worth it for you, or are you reconsidering your subscription? Let us know in the comments. I think the biggest concern that I and many critics have in terms of Game Pass, and even subscription services in general, is their sustainability. As Paul Tassi of Forbes points out in an article from April 2023, Netflix is currently having a seriously bad time in terms of debt just because it produces such an enormous amount of content now. As of June 2023, this figure stood at $14.46 billion, and while their total debt has decreased since the beginning of 2021, it began increasing again towards the end of 2022. Yikes! I'm also sure that many of you are already aware that every one of the top streaming services has increased their subscription fees dramatically over the past few years, but even this doesn't seem to be fixing the problem. In truth, their business model is heavily flawed, and in all likelihood, many of them are just not going to be around for too much longer. There's obviously a big difference when it comes to Microsoft though. For one, they have a market cap of $2.45 trillion, making them the biggest video game company in the world by a massive margin. For the sake of comparison, Tencent's market cap is $391 billion, while Sony's is $105.6 billion. Microsoft does indeed have debt, but it's a small fraction of their total market cap and something that they have total control of. We're talking about the second biggest company in the world here, guys. I'm not saying they're indestructible or even without flaw, but they're only second to Apple in market cap, at least as of August 2023. Even if the revenue model for Xbox Game Pass is somewhat flawed, I think Microsoft has more than enough time to figure it out. And if anything, the service will just have to adapt. And I think in many ways it could be beneficial for gaming in general, especially for smaller developers who have original ideas and content. The thing is, the more I dig in here, the more I find it hard to prove the notion that Game Pass is killing the Xbox. If anything, it's a major drawcard for gamers and is helping to sustain and evolve Xbox over time. Can the service be improved? Sure, and I'd like to think Microsoft have some good ideas on how to do this. Innovation is important, and I think it's important to reward loyal fans and give exposure to developers who may otherwise just be left in the lurch. Game Pass definitely isn't for everyone, but overall, if you're a big gamer who really loves to try out games and get some benefits with this gaming loyalty program, then Game Pass is worth the price of admission, certainly as it stands right now. So that's really all I have to say about this, guys. I think Game Pass is a good thing and here to stay. But let's hear from you. Do you agree with this investigation? Or are we barking up the wrong tree? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for daily gaming, VR, and tech content. From me and the crew here at Metasquad, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later!